What's going on, guys? Episode of Behind Enemy Lines on location here. I got Ced Golden, David Eckert from the Austin American-Statesman. We are just here, fresh off of Texas A&M's loss to Miami. College football playoff, first round matchup. A&M season comes to an end. Cedric, I just want to start with you. What is your thoughts? How did this game shake out? And what do you think, from everything you saw today?
Tony, I think that the thing that gets me is missed opportunities. I mean, they lived in Miami territory in the first half, and they had 0 points to show for it. And then when you turn the ball over 3 times, you're just not going to win. And Colin Klein said as much in his last game as the OC. It'll be an off season where they'll be thinking about what could have been. Now, I didn't think either one of these teams would beat Ohio State in the next game, but it's not about that. It's about getting a win. And then what was an historic afternoon at Kyle Field, and they let one get away.
Yeah, speaking about letting one get away, you talked about just the trench play, right? Whether it be on offense giving up 7 sacks or the defense just not being able to stop the run game. What were some of the biggest things that stood out to you, just the A&M's inefficiencies that cost them really derailed their season?
Yeah, I mean, you allowed Ruben Bain to just wreck this game, and that's probably, if you're the Texas A&M offense and you're planning how you're going to attack Miami, that's the one thing you really can't allow to happen, and it did. And so, Marcel Reed, I think, it's kind of interesting to hear Mike Elko say that he felt like Texas A&M hadn't controlled the line of scrimmage throughout the season, because the stats say, really, Marcel Reed's one of the less pressured quarterbacks in the SEC. And so to see Miami sack him 7 times, you can tell that he was uncomfortable. And then on the other side of the ball, they just had no answer for Miami's run game. Once Miami stopped messing around with quadruple reverse pass, wide receiver pass, wildcat nonsense, and just ran the ball, they finally had a little bit of success. So, I think it's accurate. They really lost the game on both sides of the ball up front.
Yeah, and, to piggyback off your point, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was just, like you said, the 7 sacks. This is a veteran offensive line group that was talking about as a Joe Moore, potentially a one-winning group, a group that came in that was supposed to be like the pillar of this team. And just in the biggest game, they just didn't hold up their end of the bargain. I know there was some conversation about the way Trey Zoon spoke about Ruben Bain before the season or before the game, and I think we know who won that matchup at the end of the day. So, Ced, when you look at it, I'm kind of talking about post-game. We were able to talk to Marcel Reed, Colin Klein, who's going to be in Kansas State next season. Just how did you feel the sense about the emotion there? Just a lot of emotion between those two guys who are no longer going to be together, and just like the affinity they had for one another.
You know what, it's Tony, that's what it's all about for me. And you saw Colin Klein choking back tears when I asked him about them parting ways and the upside of his young charge. And you see Marcel Reed saying, this guy's like a second father to me. And when a coach's son says that, it carries a little bit more weight. And so, great relationship. And the one thing that I'll say is sports is about relationships. It's about winning and losing, but it's mostly about the people. And when you see that the impact that these 2 young men, and Colin Klein's still a very young man. I'm old. I remember covering him when he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But when you see that what they've built together here over a couple of years and where they're both going in their careers, it's kind of a heartwarming story. And I think that they're both going to experience a lot of success moving forward.
Absolutely. And obviously, David, we 2 losses to end the season, 11-0 start, kind of derailed it. Last year, you saw them kind of start 7-1, go 8-5. So now, when you look at this A&M team, you look at the way they end seasons is obviously a question mark. From your vantage point, your perspective, how did they learn from this? How did they grow, and how did they get out of this habit that's obviously going to carry as a talking point all off season?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's unusual in college football for you to just accelerate right to the top of the food chain immediately, unless you're Indiana or one of these like complete freak shows. It's incremental, right? I mean, I think this year Texas A&M did a lot to negate the Texas 8-4 stuff that people would throw at them, and they took steps, but sometimes you don't take all the steps that you would like to, I think again, when you're a school like Texas A&M and you're trying to break into that top tier of the SEC and stay there, late in the season, that's when you've got your depth comes to play, right? That's when you really need to be 85 or next year 105 deep
Right.
and have quality up and down your roster. And, once Mike Elko, who again is only in year 2, is able to build that, I think you'll see that start to change. But, you don't know how long it's going to take for that to happen.
Absolutely. And like you talked about, year 2, you're trying to build the program. It's going to be their 3rd recruiting cycle, but going into this offseason, this is a team that's going to have a lot of changeover. I think naturally in this transfer portal age, you're going to see a lot of that. But there are a lot of veteran pieces, the whole offensive line, running backs galore. They had a lot of guys who were going to leave, potentially Torrin York, Casey Concepcion going to go to the NFL draft, Cassius Howell. So just trying to find a way to not rebuild, but to reload is just a question of if they're going to be able to do that. So before we sign off here, Seth, I just want to get your final thoughts. You've been in Texas. You've been covering the state football-wide for a long time. Just what is your overall assessment of this season? What should be the lasting memory? And when you look at Texas A&M football in 2025, where do you leave off?
They took a big step forward. And Elko said it after the game. We were from 8 wins to 11 wins. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that they're on the ascent here. And so there's a chance. They're a player now. Now, the hard part is figuring out how to maintain that excellence. And in the SEC, that's never easy. They got to figure out how to beat that team in Austin. That's a big box that they need to check. And I think that Elko's the right guy for this job. He's a hard, tough-minded guy. And I think he knows, as an old defensive line coach, that it's going to be won and lost up front, and what's going to keep him up late at night this offseason is how they lost the battle in the trenches.
Absolutely, and like you said, season ends 11-2. Texas A&M football drops. A game at home, trying to go undefeated on the season. Miami ends their year. A lot of questions in this offseason. Turn the page. We'll see what's in store for the Texas A&M Aggies. From Tony Catalina, Cedric, David Eckert from the American-Statesman. Thank you guys all season long.